The girl noticed. The horrifying thing was a cat had fallen into the pool, struggling desperately. However, she pulled down the curtain, pretending not to see anything. It wasn't until the cat drowned that she casually informed her father.
There's a dead cat in the fountain.
Her father was shocked by the sight of the dead cat and quickly retrieved it from the water. Emma, on the surface, appeared sorrowful, but she was secretly delighted. This kind of indirect cruelty was exactly what people call a bad seed, but Emma, most of the time, hid her maliciousness flawlessly. In the classroom, a large yellow wasp flew in, causing her classmates to panic and run. Emma calmly took a glass, trapped the wasp inside, and quickly slid a piece of paper under the glass, blocking its exit. Then, under the amazed gazes of her teacher and classmates, Emma took the wasp to the window and released it.
Thank you, Emma.
You're welcome, Mrs. Ellis.
Such a brave and kind little girl. Everyone, her classmates, teachers, and parents, thought she was perfect in every way. But when her classmate Katie got a new watch, Emma's eyes flashed with jealousy. Soon after, she pretended to accidentally trip Katie while she was running. Katie fell to the ground.
Katie, are you all right?
You okay? Look over there.
Emma immediately grabbed Katie's hand and gently helped her up. Little did Katie know, Emma had already stolen her watch during the interaction. It was clear Emma was envious and full of malice. Her teacher noticed something suspicious about Emma and gave her a thoughtful look. Emma became nervous, worried that her face might have betrayed her thoughts. When she got home, Emma practiced her fake smile in front of the mirror.
Basket of kisses. Basket of kisses. Basket of kisses. Basket of kisses.
Such a cunning girl, even her father, Mark, was completely fooled, believing Emma to be a sweet and loving child. The school even awarded Emma as a model student every year, and this year's Outstanding Student Award ceremony seemed to be another guaranteed victory for Emma. But when the teacher announced Milo's name, Emma's smile instantly vanished. Seeing Emma clenched her teeth and started shaking her leg. She felt Milo was timid and foolish, completely undeserving of such an honor. An evil plan began to form in her mind. Mark noticed Emma's unusual behavior, thinking she was simply upset about not winning, and tried to comfort her. But Emma, with a sincere expression, assured him she was fine.
Really happy you got it.
This made Mark feel that he was being too small-minded, and that Emma was gracious and composed. But soon after, Emma invited Milo to play hide-and-seek. As they played, they wandered away from the group and ended up in a dense forest. Milo wanted to return, but Emma led him deeper into the woods to a cliff overlooking the ocean. Milo became scared, but Emma stared at him coldly, as if looking at a dead person.
What do you want? I think you know.
When Milo disappeared, everyone frantically searched for him. Emma hid nearby, observing coldly. Hours later, Milo was found at the bottom of the cliff, no longer breathing. Milo's grieving mother burst into tears, but Emma remained indifferent, pretending to be scared and hiding in Mark's arms. When they got home, Emma happily swung her legs, barely holding back her laughter. This puzzled Mark greatly. Noticing her father's confusion, Emma calmly said that Milo was already dead, so there was no point in mourning him. While this was technically true, Emma's cold indifference shocked Mark, but he reassured himself, thinking that children don't process grief the same way adults do later due to work commitments. Mark hired a live-in nanny named Kate, asking her to start work the next day. Meanwhile, Emma hid behind the door, staring at Kate with a malicious gaze. It was clear Emma disliked her youth and presence. But in front of Mark, she sweetly welcomed Kate. However, as soon as Mark left, Emma began watching Kate's every move and discovered that Kate secretly entered Mark's bedroom and rummaged through his belongings, learning that Mark was a widower and a well-paid engineer. Kate thought she might become the lady of the house. To that end, she boldly took Mark's sleeping pills, hoping to make him more anxious so she could comfort him and take advantage of the situation. But this scene was witnessed by Emma. Yet Emma didn't tell her father. Instead, she used this to blackmail Kate.
Don't worry. I won't tell. I think I'm gonna stay up past my bedtime tonight. Now go and get me some ice cream.
You little bitch.
Emma didn't like being called such an unpleasant name, but she kept quiet. Because Kate's snide comments didn't bother her at all, for now, there was no need to retaliate. The next day was Milo's funeral. Everyone was heartbroken, but Emma remained calm, unable to understand why they were so sad. This was the first time Emma realized she was different from others. However, Emma didn't care. Emotions were just built with facial expressions and gestures. If the funeral required a show of grief, she could easily pretend, but Milo's mother inquired about the medal. It was the only honor Milo had ever received, and she wanted to bury it with him in the casket. Strangely, the medal went missing after Milo's death. Mark instantly felt deep sympathy for the poor child. Emma, noticing this, shed fake tears as well. Mark thought she was mourning Milo, but Emma was secretly delighted her secret remained safe. Just to be cautious, Emma hid the medal under her bed. But when Mark bent down to pick up a fallen teddy bear, he nearly found the medal.
What are you doing in my room?
Just picking up a little.
It is picked up. It's always picked up. Anything else?
No.
Emma's smile was always deliberate and fake. She displayed it when she needed to manipulate people, but most of the time, she remained cold and emotionless. Mark gradually noticed Emma's unsettling nature, so he looked through photos from the award ceremony and saw that Emma had been staring at Milo's medal the entire time. Her eyes filled with a greedy desire to take it. This realization deeply shocked Mark, but the next morning, Emma's teacher arrived with a lawyer. Milo couldn't swim, and he had a fear of heights. It was impossible for him to go near the cliff by himself. On the day of Milo's death, a classmate had seen him playing with Emma, so the teacher suspected Milo didn't fall accidentally, and asked Emma to cooperate in the investigation. Emma, overhearing this from behind the door, immediately turned cold and sinister. She then walked away, and shortly after,
Emma?
broke a glass bottle and leaned on the broken shards. Witnessing this, Kate was utterly stunned. The teacher, feeling uneasy, hurriedly said goodbye. But as Mark cleaned Emma's wound, he asked her about Milo. Emma firmly insisted that she hadn't played with Milo that day, nor had she been near the cliff. Emma's response was so quick and confident that Mark decided to test her further.
Mrs. Ellis says you were.
She's lying.
Honey, why would Mrs. Ellis lie?
Because she hates me. She never liked me. I don't know why.
Emma suddenly retorted, and Mark was instantly caught off guard. Emma's mother had died in childbirth, which had always made Emma feel inferior, so it seemed natural for classmates and teachers to have some opinions about her. Hearing this, Mark's heart ached. He felt guilty for doubting his daughter. After all, she was just a 9-year-old child. How could she possibly be involved in something as serious as a death? Kate, having seen through Emma's ploy that day, didn't expose her because she wanted to get closer to Mark and couldn't afford to offend this ruthless little princess.
Don't worry, I told him how great you are. I got you, girl.
At that moment, they noticed the teacher's car parked outside Milo's house. Emma immediately became nervous, but Kate smugly told her the teacher suspected Milo had been murdered and was actively seeking evidence. She believed the police would soon open an investigation. When that happened, Emma, as a suspect, would be the first to be questioned.
You better get your story straight or you're gonna get busted.
Despite her malicious nature, Emma was still just a child with limited understanding. The worst she could imagine was her father scolding her or the teacher reprimanding her. But Kate told her there was a special prison for children equipped with a 220-volt electric chair to punish bad kids.
You're silly. Nobody would put a kid in the electric chair.
Sure they do. Do you know what happens in the electric chair? It cooks you. Your skin crackles and shrivels like when we make bacon in the morning. They have a special one for kids, even painted pink, and they put pee-pee pads underneath it for when you piss yourself.
Kate's threats made Emma believe them. Thinking that the teacher wanted to send her to such a prison, Emma began to hate the teacher. She then secretly placed a wasp nest from under her house's eaves into the back seat of the teacher's car. Later, when the teacher came out of Milo's house, he unsuspectingly drove away. But a wasp flew into the car and crawled onto his face. Terrified, the teacher tried to swat it away. But the car unknowingly veered off course. A tragic accident occurred shortly afterward, and the teacher died instantly. The murderer, Emma, returned home as if nothing had happened. Happy to have eliminated her greatest threat, little did she know, Kate had started searching Emma's room while she was out, and eventually found the medal hidden under her bed to expose Emma's crime. Kate hung the medal on Mark's bedside lamp, ensuring he would see it as soon as he entered the bedroom. By coincidence, Mark returned home just as Emma, overcome with excitement from her murder, ran to greet him. Spotting the medal, Emma trembled with fear, but as an experienced manipulator, she knew how to take risks. Seeing that Mark had his back turned, Emma quietly took the medal, hiding it behind her back as she tried to sneak away. However, Mark suddenly turned around.
Nothing.
What's in your hand?
Nothing.
And under his intense gaze, Emma reluctantly handed over the medal, but adamantly claimed. She had no idea how it ended up in their home. Kate quickly chimed in, saying something that angered Emma deeply.
I found it cleaning.
Emma shot a vicious glare at Kate, already planning a tailored punishment for her. But when she turned to face her father, Emma looked soft and innocent. She admitted the medal was Milo's, and said she had been jealous of Milo winning it, so Milo let her borrow it for a while. Soon after, Milo had his accident and fell off the cliff. Emma claimed she was too scared, and decided to bring the medal home to hide it. Mark's deep stare made it clear he didn't believe her, but since Emma was his biological daughter, he reluctantly accepted her story and returned the medal to Milo's mother.
Very sorry. I shouldn't have kept it. I was going to give it back. But he never saw him again.
Milo's mother, seeing Emma's timid expression, thought she was still traumatized by Milo's death and hadn't dared to return the medal earlier now that the medal was recovered. She was extremely grateful to Emma for returning it, but not long after, Mark learned about the teacher's car accident and noticed that the wasp nest from their eaves was missing. Mark was horrified. Too many coincidences made it impossible to ignore. He couldn't help but believe that Emma was far from a simple child, so he quickly scheduled an appointment with a psychologist to see if Emma had any psychological issues. How else could she be so bold? Emma outwardly agreed, but her hands clenched tightly, her nails digging into her palms, leaving her hands bloody and raw. When Emma met the psychologist, she acted like a consummate actress, talking about Milo's death. She clasped her hands tightly, her face filled with sorrow, even showing a touch of confusion and curiosity, perfectly matching how a child her age would process death when discussing happy moments. Emma became relaxed and talkative, presenting the image of an innocent and romantic young girl. She performed exactly the way adults wanted a child to behave. The psychologist didn't notice anything unusual.
Emma seems 100% perfectly average. In fact, I told her she reminds me of myself.
With the psychologist's report, Mark finally felt relieved. Afterward, the father and daughter happily went home, only to find the nanny, Kate, lying on the couch in revealing clothes, acting like the lady of the house. Mark said nothing, but couldn't help sneaking a glance at Kate's figure. This alerted Emma to the danger, so she demanded that Kate leave their house, but Kate smugly retorted that Emma didn't have the authority to decide anything in this house.
Your dad's a DILF. D-I-L-F. Okay? And he's single, and he was totally just scoping me out. You wouldn't mind if he and I hooked up, would you? The poor guy needs a release. I mean, just look at him.
Stay away from my dad.
Or what? Where I come from, a spoiled little princess like you, ain't nothing.
It was obvious. Kate was ambitious and ready to take over the household. But Kate underestimated Emma. That night, after Mark went out, Emma also disappeared. Although the little nuisance was bothersome, her disappearance at this moment would surely make Mark furious, ending Kate's dreams of becoming a lady of the house. So Kate panicked and began searching everywhere. She noticed that the light in Mark's workshop was on, thinking Emma might be hiding inside, and went in, but the iron door of the workshop suddenly dropped.
Emma! Emma, let me out of here! This isn't funny! Emma!
Kate heard a sound, stood up to check the entrance, only to be met with a sudden burst of flames. The fire quickly grew into an inferno. Kate then realized the floor was littered with gasoline cans. The flames engulfed the entire room in an instant. Kate, terrified, begged for mercy repeatedly, but Emma, standing outside the window, watched coldly.
Emma!
Watching Kate consumed by the flames, Emma sneered. There had been many women interested in her father, but none of them had succeeded, because compared to Emma's ruthless schemes, none of them could match her level of cruelty. When Mark returned home, he found the workshop in ruins. Emma told the police that Kate had gone into the workshop to secretly smoke and cause the fire. Mark rushed to check on Emma, but Emma showed no sign of fear. Instead, she comforted Mark. In Emma's eyes, Mark saw a twisted excitement. Despite not wanting to believe the worst about his daughter, the medal, the wasp nest in the teacher's car, and the fire all seemed to point back to Emma. Late that night, Mark woke Emma, who was pretending to sleep, and finally voiced his long-suppressed suspicions.
You hurt Milo, didn't you?
Sensing her father's anger and tension, Emma sat up straight and admitted everything.
He fell. Kept on yelling and yelling that he couldn't swim. I didn't believe him. He always over-exaggerated. After a while, I'm so sorry, Daddy. I didn't want to get into trouble.
Blinking her innocent eyes, she tried, as she always did, to use her timid and pitiful demeanor to evoke her father's protective instincts, hoping to avoid punishment. But Mark suddenly remembered their previous nanny, who had also died mysteriously while with Emma.
I should have never grabbed my arm. So I kicked her. She fell down the stairs. I didn't do anything wrong. She's the adult. She should have protected herself better.
Emma, do you know what could happen to you?
Emma casually said, "They deserved it!" Mark roared in disbelief. Emma was only 9 years old, yet had skillfully killed multiple people, and as her father, he had never noticed, tears streaming down her face. Emma defended herself, saying everyone she killed deserved to die.
Mommy said she knew about Milo, and one day everyone would. She said they were going to take me to this little electric chair they put kids in. She told me she was going to be my stepmother.
Emma, calm down.
I don't want a stepmother! Emma! She stole pills from your room. I watched. She fooled you. You weren't going to do anything about it. Not one thing!
So you did. Isn't that right?
Her calm and calculated demeanor made Mark deeply afraid. He quickly searched online and discovered that Emma's behavior resembled antisocial personality disorder. Individuals like this innately disregard life and emotion in the early stages. They show coldness, cruelty, and a lack of empathy. In advanced stages, they kill anyone they dislike, even those closest to them. But most of the time, Emma was sweet and lovable. Mark struggled to reconcile how she could also be a cold-blooded killer. Hoping to curb her worsening behavior, Mark took Emma to a lakeside cabin, believing isolation might slow her symptoms, but then Mark received a call from the police. They said the teacher and nanny's deaths were deliberate murders and they had found evidence. Further analysis would confirm the killer's identity. Mark was devastated, falling into endless despair. He began having nightmares every night, dreaming of the drowned cat, its body floating in the pool, refusing to sink. Dreaming of Milo, bloodthirsty, seeking revenge, and even dreaming of Emma becoming more and more monstrous. Thinking of the innocent lives lost, Mark was consumed with guilt. He wanted to use medical methods to save Emma. But after researching various cases, he discovered that this kind of bad seed was incurable and would only become more out of control. At some point, Emma appeared behind him, her expression colder than ever, terrified. Mark quickly shut the laptop.
I don't like you sneaking around like that. How long were you standing there? You snooping on me?
Think you were snooping on me? Okay, Daddy?
I don't know anymore.
That makes me sad.
That night, Emma secretly closed Mark's bedroom door and then turned on the gas to poison him. But Mark woke up midway, smelling the gas. He immediately opened the windows, then rushed to the kitchen. Seeing that all the gas knobs were turned on, Mark sorrowfully realized that everything he had discovered about Emma was true. She wouldn't even spare him. And Emma stood not far away. Their eyes met. Emma's face was cold and emotionless. Mark walked out of the house, heartbroken, and asked Emma why she would do this to her own father. Emma said nothing.
I'm the only person you have.
No. If something happened to you, I'd live without Angela. At least she thinks I'm nice.
Mark's mind was in turmoil. A child like this was truly rotten at the core, doomed to never develop a sense of right and wrong. To Emma, a parent's love was merely a collection of expressions and actions, but at that moment, Mark had also learned to pretend. He reached out his hand to Emma, and Emma naturally held it, showing no fear because, in Emma's mind, adults might appear big and strong, but they were incredibly stupid, just like Mark, who was bound by fatherly love, unable to take any cruel action. But after intense inner conflict, Mark resolved to kill Emma, because Emma's crimes would soon be exposed, and she would spend the rest of her life in a psychiatric hospital or prison, rather than let her endure such a punishment, Mark decided to let Emma die quickly, in his own way. So he poured out a bottle of sleeping pills, crushed them into powder, and mixed it into Emma's milk. Then he brought it to her room. But cautious as ever, Emma switched the glasses of milk while Mark was out. That night, it was Mark who fell into a deep sleep while Emma suddenly opened her eyes. She took out Mark's handgun and placed it in his hand, planning to stage his suicide.
You're alive.
Yes, Daddy.
Mark woke up and grabbed for the gun, but Emma snatched Mark's phone, dialed, and then screamed before running away. Earlier that day, Emma had confirmed that there was a neighbor near the cabin. In the dead of night, he was sure to hear the cries for help. Emma quickly locked herself in the bathroom, waiting quietly for half an hour, but to escalate Mark's rage, Emma stayed completely silent. Sure enough, moments later, Mark, in a fit of uncontrollable anger,
Emma, I know you're in there. Emma! Open the door! Emma! Open the door! Emma!
broke the door open. Emma cried and cowered in fear, but Mark, already familiar with her act, raised the gun with trembling hands, ready to shoot. At that moment, the burly neighbor burst in. Seeing him, Emma immediately cried for help.
Don't listen to her. She's not right. There's something wrong with her. Down the gun. I have to do this.
Please.
I have to protect her from herself. They're coming for her. Forgive me.
Her face streaked with tears and her terrified screams made her look like a frightened and heartbroken little girl. But in reality, nothing could truly affect Emma. She calculated everything with her mind and cared for no one or anything in the end. Based on the neighbor's testimony, Emma was declared the victim, and her aunt became her sole guardian. Since Mark had long suffered from anxiety, the aunt assumed that after Kate swapped his medication, he had gone untreated for a long time, leading to a mental breakdown and an attempt to harm Emma. After all, who would suspect? A pitiable little girl who had lost both parents. Her frailty was her best disguise.
Everything's gonna be okay.
Angela, can we go home? We can have ice cream.
You can have whatever you want.
All right, that's all for today's story. See you in the next episode.